missing companions, they may not meet with the welcome they expect. King Théoden. Théoden no longer recognised his friend from foe, not even his own kin. Once a great warrior king of the proud Rohirrim, those lords of Rohan, and much beloved by his people. Now Théoden sits slumped on his throne in the feast hall of Meduseld, a man broken in spirit, weighed down by what appears to be premature age and feebleness. In his youth he was tall and proud, strong and stern, as in the nature of the men of the Riddermark, but tragedy visited his house, striking first his wife Elfhild, who was lost in childbirth, bearing him his only son Theodred. Then his sister's husband fell to orcs, and his wife, Théoden's beloved younger sister, Éowyn, sickened and died of grief, leaving behind two orphans, Éomer and Éowyn. These two children Théoden should have cared for as a father, but he was bowed down by his losses. Then the wizard Saruman, whose lands border those of Rohan, saw his opportunity and engaged the services of a sneaking spy, Gríma, son of Galmod, known as Wormtongue. For years, Gríma has wormed his way into the king's mind, filling it with evil counsel, preparing the way for Saruman to take over the land of Rohan. The wizard's army of Uruk-hai and orcs encroach ever further into the Riddermark, yet all the while Théoden has sunk further into despair and torpor, unable to take action against these incursions or even to recognise the dangers. When his sister's son Éomer warned his king against Gríma, he became angry with the lad and banished him to Wormtongue's great those who may be enemies to the kingdom. I serve only the Lord of the Mark, Théoden King, son of Thengel. Gríma the spy has been poisoning the mind of the king against those who would serve him honestly, and as a result he has persuaded Théoden to regard his brave and faithful nephew as a dangerous traitor who would stir up conflict for his own advancement. Put your trust in Éomer rather than a man of crooked mind. But the scales could fall from the Lord of the Mark's eyes if he is released from the treacherous bewitchment that has bound him for so long. With enemies closing in from all sides, King Théoden must realise that Éomer, a fine soldier, valiant warrior and a man of wisdom and understanding, is exactly the kind of hero the kingdom of Rohan seeks in its hour of need. Éowyn, you are the daughter of kings, a shield maiden of Rohan. Éowyn, a lady of Rohan, is the daughter of Éomer, Marshal of the Mark, who was lost to Warg-riders when she was only a girl, and King Théoden's sister, Théoden, who succumbed to grief at the loss of her husband. King Théoden brought Éowyn and her elder brother Éomer to Edoras and there raised them as his own, until he fell beneath the sinister influence of Gríma Wormtongue and became old, infirm and befuddled before his time. Fair and cold like a morning of pale spring. The people of Rohan are by nature fierce and grave, but Éowyn's upbringing has weighed heavily upon her. There has been little carefree pleasure in her life, and laughter does not come easily to her. Willowy and fair, with her pale skin and her long hair like a river of gold, she is undeniably beautiful, but she has a chilly aspect and a regard as stern as steel. Nevertheless, Gríma Wormtongue is captivated by Éowyn, and his master, the wizard Saruman, has promised her to him when the realm of Rohan falls beneath his power. But when Éowyn sets her eyes upon the Lord Aragorn, heir of kings, her heart is lost, albeit his is given to Arwen Evenstar, Lady of Rivendell. The Lady of Rohan wears an ancient sword, and she has as much skill in its use as any man. Soon she will have the need to use it. orcs and Uruk-hai have increasingly been making forays into Rohan through the gap, and not just orcs. For his own purposes, it seems, Saruman has exhorted the ancient enemies of Rohan, the wild men and Dunderlings, who long ago were driven off their land and into the hills, to rise up and join with his own vile army. The land of Rohan is being harrowed, settlements are ravaged, the buildings put to the torch, men, women and children cut down as they flee. Rohirrim warriors carries 5 fearsome battle axes. Arise now, arise, riders of Théoden, dire deeds awake, dark is it eastward, let horse be bridled, horn be sounded, forth, Eolingas. King Théoden of Rohan is arrayed in full Rohirrim war gear, including a mighty helmet, engraved breastplate and mail shirt. He carries his great sword, Harrowing. Beside him, the royal guard of Rohan, led by Gamling, are similarly arrayed. Just a few hundred refugees from the settlements that have been harrowed by orcs and wild men throughout Rohan have made it through to Helm's Deep. These few will be kitted out for battle in the Hornburg armory. They are a motley bunch of old men and untested boys, but all are ready to fight to the death, to defend their kingdom, even though they are vastly outnumbered and their defence appears doomed. Down in the glittering caves, the women and the children take refuge, where they will be defended by Éowyn, shield maiden of Rohan. The sky is darkening, a storm is brewing. Elves and Men. The world is changing. I feel it in the water, I feel it in the earth, and I smell it in the air. Our time here is over. The elves last fought alongside men to combat the forces of evil at the Battle of Daggerlad, which brought about the downfall of Sauron and ended the Second Age. Now, in the Third Age, Sauron has steadily rebuilt his strength and his armies, while the elves have dwindled, both in number and in their influence upon the peoples of Middle-earth. In increasing numbers, they have made the decision to pass out of this war-torn, sorrowful world over the sea and into the undying lands, where they may enjoy their immortality in peace and bliss. In days of old, our people stood beside the King of Gondor. For many of the elfin race, the affairs of men have become a distant concern, a matter of history, almost of legend. Since Isildur struck the ring from the Dark Lord's hand at Daggerlad and was himself corrupted by its power, 3,000 years have passed, and the bloodline of Gondor has fallen into decay. Little is known of the ability of Isildur's heir, Aragorn, to unite the peoples of Middle-earth, and few elves any longer trust to the strength of men. Likewise, the fate of Frodo and his quest to destroy the ring does not touch them. Deeply, even with the finest of intentions, such trials of courage are likely to come to nothing. But unless Sauron's eye is distracted by the imminent battle of Helm's Deep, his full attention will at once be turned upon the discovery and capture of the ring-bearer, and if the Dark Lord regains possession of the One Ring, his might will be overwhelming, and his shadow will fall across all of Middle-earth. Yet there are so few defenders to withstand the vast orcish army